Welcome. My name is Nadia McConnell. I'm president of the US-Ukraine Foundation. In January of this past year, we launched an informational and advocacy campaign in regards to the whole issue of the tens of thousands of kidnapped children. The children of Ukraine, all children of Ukraine, are suffering from this war and are traumatized in one way or another. In this regard, I'm very proud that today we are launching a discussion about another aspect which is really critical for the children of Ukraine, and that has to do with going back to school. When you think about going back to school here, you think of parents getting supplies, perhaps a new uniform or dress, a lot of excitement about starting the new school year and some anticipation. But for the children of Ukraine, it's a much challenging and difficult situation. In addition to the need for supplies and materials and things, there is the issue of the ongoing war, the bombs, the lack of electricity and power, and then, of course, winter is coming. Today, we are launching a discussion with, I'm very proud to say, leaders of Ukraine, civil society leaders who have taken on different aspects of the issue of children going back to school. Today's discussion, we are going to inform you about different efforts, some that are going across the country, a regional effort, and then and as important, how individuals are also participating and helping in this area. We will be placing on our website information about these various projects and how you can be involved. In addition to raising funds for much needed supplies, there are opportunities to connect with some of these programs, be it in your schools or as individuals. I look forward to this very fruitful discussion and ongoing efforts to keep addressing this issue. Let me turn to our moderator for today, Katerina Manov. She is the founder and CEO of ENGin. It's a grassroots organization which at this point has engaged with 24,000 participants, individuals, who are connecting with students in Ukraine to teach them or to provide additional skills in English language. But it's much more than that, because in addition to the skills that are being enhanced, they are providing an important connection for children of Ukraine with children from outside or teachers or other people. So I look forward to this a very rich discussion. Katerina, let me turn it over to you as our moderator.
Thank you, Nadia. And I'm really excited to participate here as well. We have three wonderful speakers that we'll get to hear from today. And before we get into questions for them, we wanted to give each of them a chance to share their work with us. So we're going to start with Anna Novosad. And Anna, just a brief introduction for those who do not yet know you. So Anna is a Ukrainian educational activist who served at the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine in several roles, including as the minister in 2019 to 2020. Anna led a comprehensive school reform in Ukraine and was leader of a higher education funding reform. And currently, Anna leads the charity foundation Save Ed, which aims to restore access to education in Ukrainian communities that have suffered from the Russian war against Ukraine. Anna, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Nadia, Katerina, and distinguished participants. I'm very pleased and honored to be here today and to talk about this other side of the war that is very often not visible among all other tragedies that Russia's war against us brought. I'd like to share with you today the situation as it is with access to education, and also what we do at the Save Ed Foundation to try to, at least at a minimum level, to help with the access to education. I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna share my share a presentation that we prepared for this event. So this is the 4th September, basically, when Ukrainian kids are not really able to go to school. First, we had 2 years of COVID, like the rest of the world. So the American audience also knows very, very well what it is to sit at home and study online. But this is the 2nd September of the big war of Russia against us that preclude Ukrainian kids to go to schools, not only because there are some obstacles, similar to pandemic, but also because these schools no longer exist. While we are speaking with you today, by this day, Russia has destroyed basically every 10th general secondary school in Ukraine. I do not, this number does not count kindergartens, universities, vocational schools. So the scale of destruction is really horrifying. And what I see in the team of ours, when we work here on the ground, we see that Russia is doing that very, very specifically and very deliberately. And destruction of access to education is for sure a wider, broader strategy of Russia to completely destroy Ukraine as a nation, because while access to education and educated Ukrainians are those who are capable to fight back. Thus, Russia steals our kids, Russia destroys schools, and Russia burns textbooks, Russia tortures teachers, and that continues for more than 19 months by now. And just to prove you that, like sometimes you might hear that, oh, Russia attacks your schools because they consider them military sites, right? However, when you look at the map of the attacks, you can see that the destruction of schools is happening all over the country, not only on the east or the south, closer to the front lines. Here in the picture, you can see Zhytomyr Lyceum. Zhytomyr has never been luckily occupied. Russians didn't even get close to it. It's pretty far. It's 200 kilometers from Kyiv, but they hit it with a missile last March. This is Mikhailo Kotyubinsky in the north. It was an occupation, but then also with no logic to me, Russians also hit it with a missile while keeping the school in occupation. Chernihiv is actually the city that we as a team of Save Ed witnessed for the first time after Ukrainian army liberated the north. And this is the city where we realized the scale of destruction in education. Russians bombed completely several schools there, and in total, 27 out of 34 in the city of 250,000 people, 27 schools have been very severely damaged. This is Mykolaiv. This is the south, right? So half partially destroyed school was a precision missile attack. So I can give you hundreds and hundreds of examples of things like that, and the cost of that is that kids are not able to get back to school. And just to also to give a bit of explanation, because I'm not sure how exactly Ukraine looks like in the US media. However, I can assume that sometimes people see the war damaged Ukraine as completely destroyed Syria. Or they can also see the images of Kyiv that is, vibrant and is trying to live. So there's like this unclear image of Ukraine. However, what we see working on the ground is that even if the settlements, towns, villages are like semi-destroyed or 80% destroyed, for some reason people are returning there for their own reasons, and they are returning with kids. And access to education for us really is another side of this battle. And this is actually why last year, when Ukrainian army liberated the north of our country, meaning the Kyiv and Chernihiv regions, we've established Save Ed. And this is the map of the regions where we by now work. We try to prioritize those that are most vulnerable and most damaged. We haven't gotten yet to Sumy and Zaporizhia. These are our strategic goals. However, by now we work in this 5 regions plus the city of Zhytomyr in order to help those who have suffered the consequences of war. And just to give you also a little bit of data, this is the Ministry of Education data as of this year. And just to kind of focus you, to me, the most horrifying thing is that it's the 4th year when a huge number of kids has to still stay online or to stay in a mixed format. And that happens for many reasons. Kids might not have schools at all. And even though Kyiv region was fairly it was liberated quite a long time ago, right? More than a year ago. However, there are still dozens of settlements, of villages that have no schools, no kindergartens, nothing completely. So this access to schools, to education is it does not exist physically. Hundreds of thousands cannot go to school because schools do not have shelters. Kids cannot go to school because they are in proximity to Belarus, and you never know what you can expect from another crazy neighbor of ours. So there are various reasons to that. So we can say that in total, more than 2 million school children are basically doing the lame version of online learning. And shelters, unfortunately, this is our new normal, our reality for many, many years to come. We still have a huge need in that. According to the ministry, only 7,000 schools have bomb shelters. 3,000+ of schools do not have those and have to be equipped. And what I see at this, figures, and I know how these shelters look like because we at Foundation also help to restore them. It's a pity to me that we have to basically dig in our money into shelters just because we have completely insane neighbor. And so on this graph, I just will draw your attention to the lower part of it. You can see all those most vulnerable regions because they are being hit by Russia, by IRL and missile attack the most. So you can see that most of them are studying online, but also these are those regions that require shelters the most. And very often for these regions, even if they are not on the front line directly, the communities, the availability of a bomb shelter means that they can also use it as a school and not only a place for secure staying during the attack. So considering that huge scale of destruction and disrupted access to education, what do we do at Save Ed as a foundation? So our mission in general is to help the war-damaged communities to restore access to education. And so we work both on the kind of hard part side, doing the infrastructural things, but also help the schools to get back on their feet with the range of soft programs. So what first and kind of critical part of our work is arranging the temporary schools. I'll just show you a few pictures. This is 20 kilometers from Kyiv, where I am now. It's 20 kilometers from our capital. Russians lived in this school, and then when they were retrieving, they completely burned it down. As well as this is the kindergarten a few hundred meters away. They exploded it. They kept here their ammunition. So this village of 500 kids is left without anything, any educational institution. And when we came to this community with the Save Ed team, we asked the local authorities how we can help you apart from finding millions of dollars to restore the school, which is close to impossible right now. And they said we have a communal house of culture, maybe we can do something there. And basically we turned, this is how it looked inside when we were there not this July, but July 2022. It's like me roaming around this bare walls room. And then we invested in total $100,000 and we turned it completely into a small 400 square meters school. And all local primary school kids go to the school until today. We divided the entire building into several classrooms so that kids could go there and not be bused God knows where to a nearby school. We will do temporary schools like that in also now in Mykolaiv region and a few in Kyiv region as well, because we see the value of that, while the bigger recovery is coming maybe someday. The digital learning centers has been kind of our know-how. If you read a bit about what occupation by Russians means, apart from torture and killings and all other horrors, they are also stealing everything. So when the villages or towns are deoccupied, this means that also they have stolen all like laptops, devices, phones, whatever, from people's houses. So kids basically have no really means to, even if they do online, they have no means to do that. So we've started to do so-called digital learning centers. These are spaces where kids have access to devices, but also where they have access to structured learning with the tutors. And in many cases, we did them in the bomb shelters. This is how it Horotnya, this is 20 kilometers from Belarus and Russia. This little beautiful town has bad luck bordering these two countries. So we arranged there basically a huge learning space in the basement. So kids have access to the devices, books, didactics, and also work with tutors to do sort of like extracurricular learning. You might have heard about Borodyanka. This is Andriivka, which is not very far from it. The school has been completely destroyed by an aerial attack. And we arranged basically a little learning space in the bomb shelter so the kids could go there. But apart from helping with access, right, with physical things, we've at Seva decided that, okay, we have to work predominantly with people, and working with school children, we put it as our priority, and we emphasized high schoolers, because high schoolers, these teenagers, are those who have lived through this horrors of war, and they became very mature and very active. And our assumption is that they have to be the agents and owners of this recovery, and they have to take part in the recovery of their schools. So together with our beautiful partner, Spirit of America, it's the American NGO, we started the program called UActive. On this picture, you see kids from Katyuzhanka. Katyuzhanka, it's a little town, maybe like 50 kilometers from Kyiv. All these kids stayed for more than a month in occupation. These kids in the central picture, like for instance, his cat was gunshot by Russians while he was seeing that. Their classmate was shot on the street. So these kids went through a lot. They went through things that I didn't go through. And so we tried to okay, how we can help them. And we realized that one of the ways how to engage them into recovery and kind of bring back senses and bring back life is to empower them with civic education, basics of community service, project management, to teach them how to do their own projects that target recovery and target improvements in their communities. So UActive is about that. They pitch their projects, and then if they are successful with their pitch, we fund them and we help them to realize them. By now, this team has, with our support and Spirit of America support, has established a big STEM center in their school that produces parts that are needed for the drones for our army on the battlefield, but also producing a lot of needed 3D printed details for rehabilitation and also for other civilian purposes. And to wrap up, within just a year of our operations, we helped roughly 40,000 kids to get back to education. This number could be higher. However, since we prioritize little vulnerable rural areas, this is what we have, and we believe that we have to help those who cannot help themselves in the first place. Currently, we have around these 5 regions, and especially in Mykolaiv region, it has been heavily damaged, and Kharkiv region as well. We have around 54 schools that where we either do temporary schools, or we do the bomb shelters, or we do digital learning centers. Our team is now doing, for instance, 12 wells and 12 water purification systems in Mykolaiv schools, because Russians have destroyed that as well. But we also work with schools and kids to help them in a kind of soft way. So our priorities for this year remain these temporary schools, digital learning centers, and the bomb shelters. We believe that these are those instruments that have to renew access to education. And while the state is kind of thinking about bigger recovery, we are there with emergency education instruments. And just to bring a little bit of credibility, we officially work as partners with the European Commission. We implement together projects with UNICEF. And here are some of the partners that might be known to the American audience, like American Councils, Spirit of America, IREX, but also we work with tech companies like Snapchat, Makpo, EPAM, who do various things with us. So we are open to any kind of forms of partnerships. It's whether your school would like to participate with us in UActive program and to foster community services and kind of in a sister schools way, or we could do together charity, or they can be any other way to cooperate. We are open to that, and basically accepting any form of support that is possible. I appreciate your attention, and please visit our website, and I'm always available and the team to tell you more about what we do and how you can help Ukraine. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that inspiring story. And I think the photos you shared were particularly powerful and help us imagine what it's like in Ukraine right now. We're going to turn to our next panelist, Olena Kolomiets, and she is a project manager at the Kharkiv-based nonprofit Peaceful Sky of Kharkiv. Her professional background is in HR, but when the war forced so many challenges on Ukrainian children, she was inspired to focus on educational projects supporting local kids. And she led the implementation of a project creating 15 educational centers, providing a safe space for learning and community to many children in the Kharkiv area. So I'm very happy to have you here, Olena. Thank you for being with us today.
Greetings. I'm Olena. Today, we will look into the Kharkiv Oblast, and I have a hope that you can hear me well. Now I'm going to kick off my report with a presentation put up on the screen. So probably you know that the Kharkiv Oblast suffered hugely, especially the border areas, since they were very close to the Ukrainian neighbor, the Russia. And some villages as well as cities were occupied. Schools were destroyed, buildings were ruined, and children couldn't find any space to have studies in. And our partners, the educational platform, came up with an idea of setting up an educational space that involved setting up a system of buildings, some spaces with shelters to provide settings for the teachers to teach. And we involved 15 teachers and one mobile teacher to teach children. Kids aged 7, 10 are most mischievous, and that is the reason why it's very difficult for them to be smart about laptops and tablets, and they need some mentors to teach them how to handle Ukrainian, English, and maths. And we had a mobile teacher that had a car with a driver, and this teacher could attend a couple of educational spaces. And this way we could reach high coverage of children for them to be trained. This is a high necessity to have a mobile teacher that could circulate around and across 15 educational spaces. For a mobile teacher, to attend a couple of locations a day, regions of Kharkiv, Kharkiv Oblast, Kharkiv districts were to be attended. And this project has been suspended. But we do face, indeed, a huge need at present to have such a mobile teacher for the school children for the next upcoming school year. So, and we feel quite encouraged to have them on the board, and there are lots of kids well on to be trained. We have had talks with the Department of Education, with the local communities, and everyone voiced their hope for the sustained support to us. So thank you very much for an opportunity to report. So now I would like to tell you more about the Centers for Social and Psychological Support. These are the so-called hubs covering around 200 square meters of basements. And in these basements, they provide some safe educational spaces where they organize sort of trainings for children, IT, then Ukrainian, English, maths, and lots of entertainments. That's what's on offer at the moment. Besides, they also render legal consultancies in these premises. 18,000 people is the total number of beneficiaries for this year. So, and Alex now has joined in, and he says that Sumy, Kupiansk, Volchansk are other localities where they provide the assistance required. And for the psychological support that is an urgent need, and the culture of attending a psychologist where has been uttered, proves that psychologists are a novelty in the Ukrainian society, and with time, popularity of psychologists rises. And today we're trying to find a donor to provide psychological support to the children in need. And at present, we need to find a donor to continue contracts to provide rendering psychological support services. And we do have some monitors which check targets and territories of our focus, and we do hope that we will be successful in this endeavor. That is about all for the moment, and to wrap up, if you have questions, they will be very happy to answer them.
Thank you for your presentation. We'll have a chance for questions. For now, I would like to turn to our last speaker, Mykola Popadiuk. Mykola is a secondary school teacher and the country director of the ENGin Program in Ukraine. He lives in Chernivtsi, although he is now joining us from New York City, where he is serving as Ukraine's youth ambassador to the United Nations. Mykola is a talented educator who was selected as one of the top 50 teachers in Ukraine by the Global Teacher Prize in just 2021, and currently participating in development of National Strategy of Education and Science of Ukraine 2030 and the Basic Principles of Youth Diplomacy of Ukraine. So Mykola keeps a busy schedule, and we're grateful that you found some time to join us today. Thank you, Mykola.
Greetings to everyone. I'm absolutely happy to be with you today. And the experience of my previous speakers is quite useful in everyday operations. And getting back to the words of Olena, I would like to state that the richer the country we live in, the richer the experience we encounter. It goes about the experience of children living here and the stories of our foreign friends and international partners. Today, we're getting prepared for a very complicated winterization that will affect sharply schooling. And for me, as a teacher, what happens around proves that we are all sort of united. And we can all as one supply what kids need, and kids at that are also united all as one as a community, since they will need psychological support of the mature grown-ups. Besides, children would like to be not only raised, they want to get good education. And they have a proper understanding that the time is a trump card that the Russian play against us. And they are in close touch with the practical world. And probably they have quite a good understanding that applied sciences and technologies are an answer to the future, and that is why we teach them how to contribute to the operations of ENGin NGO. ENGin is quite an organization that makes an attempt to partner with the international organizations and to work for the benefit of the youth that unites around itself all the international efforts. That's about the emotional spirit, skills, values that as a result reaches cross-cultural dialogue. And all this is in the context of the program that we support. And well, the mission of our program is quite promising. And it's all about perspective vision of Ukraine, where each Ukrainian, each young person in Ukraine will be confident in English or in some other foreign language. And our hope is that the young will build their dialogue based on their knowledge and skills rather than be governed by power. And our impression is that we give a possibility for full-fledged online education to the Ukrainian in Ukraine and for the Ukrainian which left Ukraine without any additional financial investment that helps them to socialize with the international community globally. So why to study English? English learners before 35 years of age, while mastering English as a foreign language, will find it easier to speak to their counterparts in the United Kingdom, in the US, or elsewhere. And at that, when we support them with our initiative, we give them a two-level, two-tier support. First, we teach them. Second, we raise their awareness, and also we upskill them so that they could popularize the Ukrainian culture properly well, so that they could foster the economic development of Ukraine. And through this pathway, we do entertain a hope that we will become in Ukraine a decent state of the future. And in the beginning of the school year, we can say that quite a lot of Ukrainians started their school year together with our program. They join, and they will continue to join us together with the international community. The initiative started, and this way we continuously develop the Ukrainian youth. And that's in a nutshell what I wanted to deliver. So for the problems which we make an attempt to overcome, I would like to say that isolation should be a priority among other barriers for the Ukrainian to get rid of. And we face such a situation where 91% of the Ukrainian students studying English in a variety of formats at different tiers of education. And with that, Ukraine ranks the 30th in Europe in English proficiency. This means that we dedicate much time to learning English, but we under-practice English in everyday life. This means that quite often there will be some people coming over and sharing grammar or something quite well, but they find it difficult to talk. And it's all about some routine things, some daily scenarios. They cannot even answer what they had for their breakfast yesterday. And especially it's hard for them to voice their vision of Ukraine of the future. And at that, they stop as blind people at standstill, you know, and we want to develop them so that they could be more confident and courageous in voicing their stances and poses regarding the future of their state. And when it gets about some verification authority, you're not scared of errors. And our program encourages personalized approach to the needs of each student so that everyone could find something useful for him or her at this very moment for them to cater to the needs they have today. And we build up personal ties which result in some concrete practical results. At times, there's meetings between volunteers and students, and they live together, some co-living, co-sharing, etc. While it can be some support at education when they're trained, when we involve the global expertise, the Ukrainian experience, and our partners and friends into the practical domain. 4 figures I would like to share with you as follows. Our target audience will cover people starting with 35 years of age, and 78% of our target audience falls on the female, and among them you can find 19,000 students and 16,000 volunteers. Some of them are shortlisted for special trainings, but for not some higher education. So probably they can only guess, do sort of fortune guessing, what to learn and how to upskill themselves. For you to understand the maths, some volunteers have a couple of students, and they are available to dedicate more time to each student. And that we need to look at some progress and takeaways from the surveys that we did. Over 3 months of assessment, we could spot that by 100% of participants, our target audience reaches upskilling. Someone starts quite low at their initial level. Someone starts the movement from the medium level. And 90% of students manage to overcome the language barrier. Besides, their communication skills are improving, and 13% find better results in grammar, vocabulary, etc. And to wrap up, I would like to say that ENGin is financially, in fact, quite interesting, since participation of each participant in this program makes the price of $25, but the time dedicated and invested in Ukraine by the volunteers from across the globe exceeds $5 million. This means that the resource involved is huge, and we convert this resource into some concrete takeaways. So, and the team building exercise that involves 28 people working for us continuously help us to reach our achievements through the budget allocated for the needs of this project, and annual budget that makes $600,000. And to be successful, we need to attend restrictions and limits, caps that we have for the expenditures set out before us. And for Ukraine that aims to be a fully-fledged European state, we aim at broadening this budget and replenishing it sharply. So today we cooperate with NGOs from the point of disseminating the information we possess. And this means that the participation in our program can match their needs, and this means that we're indeed quite fruitful and efficient in partnering. So we are continuously looking for NGOs to continue the work.
Thank you, Mykola, for sharing the ENGin program with our audience. And I want to thank everyone again. I think I'm really inspired by the diversity of projects and approaches that we've heard about just from the three panelists today, which really highlights, I think, the vibrant civic life in Ukraine, even in the midst of war. People from wherever they are in Ukraine, from their different corners of Ukraine, working to make the future and the present better for our children. I have a couple questions for all of you, and then we will see if we have any questions for the audience. Again, we have the Q&A, so please feel free to ask there, and you can ask a specific panelist or just a general question. But my first question for all of you is, this is Ukraine's second wartime back to school season since the full-scale invasion. I'm curious if you have seen changes in the situation in Ukrainian schools from last September, when the war had just started a few months ago, and this September, or do you think there haven't really been many changes? Anna, maybe we can start with you.
Thank you, Katerina. So, of course, there are changes, and I think they are, well, first and foremost, they are more sort of like, let's say, psychological. Unfortunately, all of us here are too much getting used to this situation, and I can't say that we normalize it. However, we try as much as we can to keep up living and keep up with what is elements of our life, including education. So in that sense, I think most of the people, including educators, are they understand what's coming. We understand that the autumn and winter will be hard because there will be no electricity. So I would say that maybe psychologically, that's unfortunately something that we had to get used to. Then, of course, thanks to our army and thanks to all the support that we have in weapons, in anti-missile, and the ammunition, and assistance to rehabilitation of our warriors. The front line is not extended inward of the country, right? So it's our army liberates the territories, and thus, of course, we here in Kyiv feel much safer. People in Chernihiv feel much safer. And so most of the, a lot of the settlements can start basically thinking about recovery of offline access to education. And like if last year we had more than 2 million school children join school only online, this year this number is lower, right? And then also I think what's really important, and I think that's important for our audience, is that it's pretty damn hard to live in the war zone. However, none of us wants and none of us will allow Russians to turn us into Afghanistan that is, failed a lot of governmental services. Ukraine keeps as much as it can. It keeps the reforms, I might say, and the policies. And so the large school reform, the new Ukrainian school reform that tackled curriculum, teacher preparation, educational environment, is being back on track. There are funds for it, at least partial. There is intent of the government to continue it. Because we understand that, if we stop all the things that have been about development of the country, this is where Russia is also start to win.
Thank you, Anna. Olena, what has your experience been in the Kharkiv region? What changes have you seen between last year and this year?
For the changes and feedbacks of parents and teachers is that the observations of the teachers have proved poor math skills. kids cannot make 2 to 2, and they're unwilling to do maths. I'm, as a mother of 2 kids, would like to say that the children feel discomfortable in socializing, and my son is 14 at present, and he doesn't want to keep in touch with girls. There is a problem of opposite sex, and I do feel that there is a sexism in this society. I cannot even imagine how he will make it a mature life without being equal with the representatives of the opposite sex. So when I was a schoolgirl, there were girls and boys on a class, and that was just fine. But that means that our kids have become unsmart in handling day-to-day life. And my child went to school in Kharkiv, and I do have hope that the premises where they attended to have classes would allow them in this year. But on the 31st of August, they made a decision to switch to online classes only. And another exit to the story was having classes in the underground. In the underground, they could have arranged something useful for kids where they could feel comfortable. But unfortunately, there are no resources for that. We do not have schools with shelters that could accommodate, could have accommodated the number of kids on target. And we chose a facility that was some club, some cultural club, sort of was a local hub where people get entertained. So we arranged sort of a shelter there, and we decided that our kids will spend their time in these premises. From the point of my personal observations, I would like to make it clear that positive changes have happened. Personal resilience have grown when to compare the current state of things with what we experienced yet back a year ago. And I have no fear to say that in the history of the Ukrainian independence, personal resilience has been strengthened. The second thing to consider is that everyone sort of prefers online education. But again, this is the legacy of the past. Since starting with 2020, all of us switched with online or sort of hybrid education. What's essential today is not to lose fundamental components in classical classes and get back to education before 2019. And the current challenge is to set up modern complex, modern approaches, modern meetings, both online and offline, where we could use modern technologies of digital education to raise awareness while on the par with the global developments. And moreover, we this year will start with the implementation of AI, and the students are more willing today to use AI rather than teachers. And it's indeed tangible that the demand for AI is high, and this means that the challenge for the teacher is indeed very high. The level of state, we haven't yet decided how to organize the whole thing, but Scholz, the Germany, and the United Europe, and AI today face a new agenda where they need to convert to the new domain the current priorities, how to change education, how to change the manner of behaving in a class, how to change approaches to teaching. A student can have more information than teacher has, and how to join in, how to harmonize these processes. And by the way, that I should also recall educational losses. Physically, we couldn't even ponder over how to handle these challenges. Today, nearly everywhere across Ukraine, each teacher makes an attempt to understand what his or her teachers have lost, or his or her students have lost over this time span. And this is probably a short time spell yet, but yet I can truly prove that these are tangible deficiencies.
Thank you, Mykola. It's really fascinating. It's almost surreal to hear about how in Ukraine, it's not like the war puts everything on pause. So teachers and schools are struggling with the same challenges we are here in the United States, right? Learning loss stemming from COVID. It's a big discussion here now. Artificial intelligence and how that influences learning and students actually doing the work. Right? Huge topic of discussion here in the United States. So I think it's really inspiring that despite all of the extra challenges of dealing with shelters and missile attacks, that Ukrainian schools and teachers are sort of engaging on this other level too, and trying to bring a truly excellent education to their children. So thank you for sharing that. I'm also curious to hear from all of you about what are some of the greatest challenges that you encounter in doing your work in the projects that you've been working on. And I know we've heard about fundraising, which I think unfortunately is a challenge for all of your projects and organizations, and probably the biggest need, as speaking from my own perspective, and I think from yours as well. In addition to that, can you talk about some of the difficulties that you face or you're struggling with now as you work towards your mission and your goals? And Anna, we can start with you again.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think that of course, the biggest challenge is that the scale of destruction really defines the scale of challenge, because when you have every 10th school destroyed, means you have hundreds of thousands of kids who are left without nothing. And of course, the war continues. Just recently, it was end of August, Russia very precisely hit with an Iranian drone a school in Sumy region, and 4 people died, the principal, his deputy, and 2 more employees. So the destruction is ongoing, and the death toll of civilians is unfortunately ongoing. So I think that's the biggest challenge. Even if you have funds, you just cannot keep pace with the damage that continues to be done. And that means that you always have to choose whom you try to help first and how you can help those people. Unfortunately, like to this moment, I have no clue how to help in a meaningful way with education to Kherson kids, right? Well, apart from online, of course, but as Olena rightly mentioned, online, well, it's really not even a part of a solution. If kids do not know how to communicate among each other, that's the problem that we will for sure feel in a few years' time, So I would say that, and then also like practically, because it's easy to sit in Kyiv and to do big and nice projects, but this is not the time for that. We work a lot in the war damaged communities that have been like liberated and that are 80% destroyed. And like technically you have to have local people who work with you. And there's like a lot of project management, a lot of things to process. And so in terms of human resources and human capacity, you have to decentralize a lot your effort and find people on the ground. And for us as the organization, I'd say that like internally, that's one of the challenges. How do we make sure that we have a very strong team of project managers on the ground in little villages far from Kyiv? And how do we keep up the quality of our work? I can't say it's unsurmountable. It's just something that we now work with.
Thank you, Anna. I think you all at SAVAD have set yourself such a huge goal, and I can see how that makes the job that much harder. Olena, what challenges have you faced? Anything that you want to add that you haven't mentioned yet in helping children in your region?
Ultimate challenge was safety and security of kids. When we set out to organize work with children, the primary goal was to encourage kids. Sorry for a pause. We wanted to cover the Kupiansk area since it was under attacks. But in implementing this project, the local administration said that there was a forced evacuation in place, and that meant that the kids were ousted out of this area. And there was a will to help these kids, but that was a challenge where you do not know what will happen tomorrow, and where you have a vague idea of what district to bring kids out and what district to bring kids to was a true problem. That was our main challenge. I was deeply impressed and surprised to see that the teachers were so much willing and available to help. I was indeed pleasantly surprised at that. And it was quite easy to communicate and to work together. Quite a pleasant experience.
Thank you, Olena. Mykola, what challenges have you seen at ENGin since the war began and trying to reach for the mission?
To be true, there were lots of challenges. It's quite complicated to make a choice. Well, first of all, it's all about the financial resource. Quite often, financial burden is the first cornerstone. And to understand the true needs of the Ukrainian students and the format, the need to move forward under the framework of our program, or to choose raising awareness and upskilling in some practical domains, that was a choice, sort of a challenge. That's where we'll make an attempt to realize it better, what is required to cater to the needs they have. And while nurturing their needs, we address also experience that they share. This is sort of a stable experience, since the level of motivation normally will advance as the roller coasters. That's sort of some volatility in the system, and that makes us think how to remove shaky moments, some volatility in these operations, and how to secure stability in their preferences. And another challenge is to find Mr. Rights, Mrs. Rights, and Mrs. Rights, which could again accommodate the needs of our participants, that can bring across at best key messages and will improve the experience gained, and that will also have some positive financial impact.
Thank you, Mykola. Yeah, and I think this echoes what Anna said about really trying to reach the people who need us most. And we've also found at ENGin, right, that when we started even before the war, it's easy to sort of help people in Kyiv and Lviv and the big cities, but how do you reach out to people in smaller communities, villages, towns all over Ukraine? And I think here partnerships with the local communities and a decentralized approach, like Anna mentioned, is really important, because I think it's clear hearing from Olena's experience, the local communities know best. They know their teachers, their parents, their children, what they need. I think, yes, at ENGin, we try to do that as well, right? With partnerships with schools, and really trying to keep that line of communication with them. One challenge, we had an audience question about emotional emotional stress and psychological needs. And I know, Olena, you touched a little bit on this, that you're trying to provide opportunities to see a psychologist for children, for adults, for whole families sometimes. Anna, I wonder if this is something that you think about at all in your work, and how this plays into what you do at CEBED.
Yeah, I can only concur with Olena that this is the omnipresent problem. We don't do like specifically with we as CEBED with MHPSS and psychological recovery. We try to engage partners who have expertise in that and kind of work in a ecosystem way, so to say. So whenever we do the digital learning centers, we fill the curriculum with hours with psychologists or MHPSS trainings, for which we attract our partners. But basically on my own communication with these children around the occupied, liberated areas, they do need support, but they need it continuously, right? So they don't need just 1 or 2 meetings with a psychologist, because for what is evident and visible, that actually based on science, is that the trauma develops in time. And so what if even if now they feel okay, in half a year there will be the wave of the consequences of what they went through. And so this support has to be continuous, and that's coming back to challenges. That's another challenge. How do we actually do that? Like how we can provide a huge system of continuous support to hundreds of thousands of children, and also to educators, because if you look at the data, 57% of teachers say that they have very, very clear signs of burnout and stress because of the war and consequences and what they have to deal with.
Thank you, Anna. And Mykola, can you speak to ENGin? I know ENGin doesn't provide professional psychological support, but how do the connections that ENGin builds support in this area?
First and foremost, we had proper understanding that MHPSS should be a part of the teamwork operating and functioning in Ukraine. So this means that it's not only about the Ukrainian citizens, but it's also about everyone that feels psychological pressure globally because of the Ukrainian war. And this is also about setting up a community and socializing, exchanging texts, online conversations, etc. Apart from this effort, we also support Telegram chat and other forms of communication where we continuously keep in touch, and we contact each other to exchange. So we also carried out a number of events on technical assistance to each other and shaping resilience nowadays. And one of the current programs, that's sort of a spoiler, will be teacher-oriented. And the module of this program will be HPSS for both the teachers and the teacher-to-pupil assistance as well. That will be a cut-crossing program that will be put into life by our staff. Well, speaking about personal needs, probably that will be too much loud if I say it just directly, that someone will need some assistance after attacks, someone didn't exchange it, but he has soldiers on his family, or his parents or his brothers or sisters are at war, and it's very complicated to stay resilient in these times.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mykola, that everyone's experiences are different, everyone's needs are different. So that does create a challenge. And I think we heard from Olena's colleague that there isn't necessarily a culture of seeking out mental health support in Ukraine, which makes it even more difficult. I think what I've seen, putting on my ENGin hat for a second, is the connections we build, whether it's between students in our Telegram communities or just the core volunteer student connection. Even though it's not sort of official mental health support, it does really play that role. And sometimes just having another person to talk to and, connecting to what Anna said, not just a one-time thing, but building an ongoing relationship where, that person will be there for you week after week after week can be really, really powerful. So I think to the extent that we can continue building human connections within Ukraine and across borders, that can help us support the growing mental health needs of children and educators. I want to finish up with one question for all of you, which I think is really important to ask. How can, say, a regular person listening to this webinar in the United States help you right now? Someone who may not be a big agency, but really want to support Ukrainian children or educators. Anna, do you want to talk a bit about that first?
Yeah, thank you. Well, we at CVED, as I mentioned, we appreciate any kind of support. It can be either a small donation, and we can see that even like $1 plus $1 plus $1 makes, in the end of the day, big difference, and we can renovate a classroom or buy new textbooks instead of those that Russians have burned, or help in any other way children. We are constantly looking for partners from the U.S. schools, general secondary schools, to partner with us on UActive program. It's our community service, basically, program, and community service is something that is very, very familiar to the United States. It's a very known practice for you, and we are looking for schools to team up with the Ukrainian schools on the development of their projects, on kind of joint coaching. So we would be very happy to communicate, to cooperate on that. Yeah, I would say, just not to overload the agenda, that those two are the main, probably.
Thank you. Olena, did you want to share if there's any way people in the United States can help you and your work?
My colleague would like to make a call. Alexander. Well, Alena, thank you very much for an opportunity to voice my post. The Kharkiv local governance needs your help. Kharkiv area was occupied, and we can deeply understand the problems of every resident of the Kharkiv area. That's where people lost nearly everything. They lost their lifestyles. Kids lost the possibility to talk to their friends. There was no access to water and hygiene supplies. This means that assistance in the deoccupied territories and vacated lands, that's first of all help with education, and for such hotspots as Volchansk, for instance, Borodina, daily they experience some damages. Kharkiv, in contrast to this locality, is more peaceful. But let's say, if we recall last Saturday, 11 a.m., 5 missiles hit the downtown of the city. Out of 31 missiles, 5 hit the downtown. That's normal life of Kharkiv city. And people of Volchansk and Borodanka need not only the support that we voiced, but also they need hygienic products, linen, and groceries also, and information as well. So food banks, they are placed in some localities, but they're not enough. And quite often parents move their kids to other families of Ukraine, to the places where there is proper communication, online access, and where they can have water and hygienic products, since help to the Kharkiv area is indeed basic.
Yeah, and I see we had an audience question about any specific assistance that an individual can provide to the Kharkiv region, to a school, especially in the Kharkiv region. So
we will be posting links to the various projects.
Perfect. Yeah, because I think that people can follow up on what they'd like to help with. So real quick, I'd like to give a word to Mykola before we turn it over to Nadia to close.
Well, I would like to urge everyone to continue supporting with your sustained assistance the team of Kharkiv NGO, and for us, we have a very simple rationale. A volunteer spreads information on what ENGin does, and for us, this is a sort of outreach campaign for the resources to share with the maximum target audience possible. $25 is the price of contribution to the operations of ENGin. And this is some hope and investment that there will be some direct pledge to reach some achievement in communication with the Ukrainian. And your donations and direct communication are most welcome. It's not only about everyone present with us today, but also about the soldiers of Ukraine fighting for victory.
Great. Thank you, Mykola. And I just want to highlight, because I know that not everyone has the opportunity to donate, but this is exactly why I think the opportunity to volunteer with ENGin is so powerful, because literally anyone can do it. If you speak English and you have 1 hour a week, you can volunteer with ENGin. No Ukrainian knowledge needed, no teaching background. And we really, really need volunteers now. We have a couple hundred students on our waiting list. So I would say it's an easy first step for anyone to support Ukraine hands-on. And if you're already volunteering or can't volunteer at this moment, spreading the word. And I think that's actually true about all of these projects, right? We really appreciate people spreading the word about the good things that are happening in Ukraine and helping find supporters that way. All right, thank you again, everyone, for participating. Nadia, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you very much for a very inspirational discussion. As I said at the beginning, that this is really the beginning of our dialogue, I think, on this very critical issue facing the children of Ukraine. And I have been in touch with each of you individually, and we will be developing a site on our website that will describe all of your programs and ways to help. But I think also the importance of connecting all of you together, I think, is also very important. And I look forward to ongoing discussions so that we can make sure that we are prioritizing our assistance. Again, thank you for a very inspirational discussion. And we really are touched by, I would say, impressed about the kind of leadership that you all are providing. And so let me conclude with Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.
Героям слава. Thank you.
Героям слава.